Question 5, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the UK has an exceptional record of innovation in medical technology. There couldn't be a more exciting time for the sector. We're extending the length and the quality of human life and solving rare diseases. With the help of the Medical Research Council's £650 million grant this year.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The North East has a fantastic life sciences sector with 7,000 people working in the sector and a unique combination of medical and technology assets, networks and academic expertise. However, with business investment at record lows, what's his government doing to ensure our brilliant research and development is transferred into real manufacturing jobs?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the government, as the Honourable Lady would know, is investing in medical manufacturing. I'd be very happy to meet with her or businesses in her constituency to make sure they can access that funds. But it is only the good stewardship of our economy that has allowed us to continue to invest record amounts in research and innovation in the UK.
Long Bailey.
To number 7.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Ensuring regulators have the right skills and capabilities to regulate in their domains is fundamental to the effective delivery of our approach on AI regulation. To support this, we have established a central coordination function which will provide regulators with guidance on implementing the regulatory principles and help them to identify emerging risks and challenges. The £10 million funding we have announced to jumpstart regulator capacity and capability will form a crucial element of this work.
Rebecca Long Bailey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. AI in the UK still lacks sufficient regulation despite the pace of change and the risks posed. The government stated that they expect to introduce a statutory duty on regulators requiring them to have due regard to the 5 high-level principles outlined in the AI White Paper. So can the Secretary confirm if and when she will legislate for this and what factors will inform her decision?
Minister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The risks when it comes to AI are still emerging, so the priority of this government is keeping pace with those risks to keep the public safe, and why we have an agile sector-specific approach, utilising our world-leading regulators, whilst the opposition keep calling for legislation on an area they don't understand.
Does the Secretary agree with me that one of the great importances of the Bletchley Conference was that it enabled international cooperation on interoperability and a common approach? And does she agree with me that this is something that will enable regulators to cooperate internationally?
I absolutely agree with my honourable friend. In fact, I call this the Bletchley effect, and we have seen action taken in other nations across the world since our world-leading first ever AI Global Summit on Safety.
We now move to topical questions. Stuart C. MacDonald.
Point, please, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Thank you.
Keep it a bit quieter. It's not fair. We can't hear the Minister. Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we've just celebrated 1 year since my department was created, and in that time we have pushed research and development funding to record levels. We have secured a bespoke deal on Horizon Europe. We have led the globe when it comes to AI safety, and we've passed the world-leading Online Safety Act and much more. And we have a plan to go even further. My department continues to drive innovation, to create better jobs and to push economic growth. This month we have set out our pro-innovation, pro-safety plans to regulate artificial intelligence, building on the success of the AI Safety Summit to cement Britain's position as a global leader in safe and trustworthy AI. And we're slashing red tape to free our researchers from pointless paperwork. We have got a plan to go even further and become a science and technology superpower. This plan is working.
C. MacDonald.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Higher salary requirements and visa charges for skilled workers, plus impossibly restrictive family visa rules, are going to put the UK out of reach for many early career researchers and scientists. So what is the Secretary of State doing to stand up against these crazy Home Office policies which will make her own department's goals for recruiting researchers and technicians virtually impossible to achieve?
We have a fantastic pull power in the UK with world-leading facilities, 4 out of the top 10 universities, and a range of routes for people to come here, including the very successful Global Talent Visa.
Rachel McLean.
Madam Deputy Speaker, recently after some storms, residents in Hanbury, another rural part of my constituency, were without broadband for 3 weeks. It was only fixed when I, the local MP, got involved. So what can the Minister do to make sure that these providers restore services much more quickly? 3 weeks is completely unacceptable delay.
Well, I'm sorry to hear of the problems that her constituents experience. The telcos are under certain obligations to Ofcom in keeping networks up and running. We are testing those resilience measures. Thankfully, Gigabit is a much more resilient network and has withstood floods, for instance, in York recently, but we hope to be able to have a much more resilient network in future.
Peter Kyle.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The government's own AI white paper says that all jurisdictions are going to need mandatory reporting of frontier AI. The United States has already done it. The EU has already done it. Why is she waiting for a Labour government to keep this country safe?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm not going to take any lectures when it comes to AI from the opposition, because we have a plan that is working. We are leading the world when it comes to AI safety. And I spoke just before about the Bletchley effect. We have the world's first ever institute that is doing pre-deployment testing.
Vicky Ford.
Madam Deputy Speaker, parents want their children to be safe. And many parents are deeply concerned about what children are seeing on their phones. Does she agree that sellers of mobile phones should be doing much more to verify the age of the user? And if the phone is being bought for a child, they should provide the parents with access to and advice on parental controls so parents can help keep their children safe?
Thank you. I absolutely agree with my right honourable friend's passion when it comes to online safety, and that is why we led the world with our leading Online Safety Act, which is the most comprehensive. I'm more than happy to discuss this matter further with my right honourable friend on an area which we both agree.
Helen Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The area between Cockshut and Welshampton in my constituency is one of the many total not spots in North Shropshire. Can the Minister update us as to the progress she's making with total not spot, and will she meet with me to discuss the progress of the shared rural network in North Shropshire?
I thank her for raising the issue of total not spots and partial not spots. So we have an amazing programme, the Shared Rural Network. There's 500 million from the industry and 500 million from government. We are going through all of those coverage areas which are shown wanting, and we hope to be able to make progress in her own constituency.
Dr. Luke Evans.
During recess, I took part in a cross-party delegation to the Interparliamentary Union trip to the UN for the summit on conflict and security. One of the seminars was about AI security. Now, I know the UK held the first ever summit on AI safety with 28 countries coming together to put in guidelines. What further update do we have on bringing further countries on board to make sure that AI can be explored in a safe way?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for that question. There is lots of ongoing work, including my conversations with G7 partners. Well, I know the Secretary of State is meeting with international partners. I would welcome a meeting to get an update on his conversations at the UN and what work is being done there.
That completes We now come to questions to the Prime Minister. Sarah Dines.
Number one, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the whole House will join me in sending our deepest condolences to the family of Alexei Navalny. He died for a cause to which he dedicated his whole life, freedom, and to return home knowing that Putin had already tried to have him killed was one of the most courageous acts of our time. Together with our allies, we are considering all options to hold Russia and Putin to account, and this morning we sanctioned those running the prison where Alexei Navalny's body still lies. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
I know that my right honourable friend will share my horror felt by this House, the oldest People's Assembly in the world, at the acid attack against a woman and 2 children on the streets of London. Does he share my anger that we would still not have been able to deport the perpetrator had he been found because of the so-called European Court of Human Rights? When will we stop bending the knee to this so-called European Court, a travesty of a court?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this was a horrific attack, and my thoughts are with the victim and their families. Obviously, I can't comment on a live investigation, but speaking more broadly, clearly, I don't think it's right for dangerous foreign criminals to be able to stay in our country. And that's why our Nationality and Borders Act made it clear that anyone who is convicted of a crime and gets a sentence of 12 months or more will not be granted asylum in the United Kingdom. That is the common sense position that I believe is supported by the majority of the British public, but one that the Labour Party voted against time and time again.
Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I start by welcoming the new member for Wellingborough and the new member for Kingswood? I know they will both be powerful advocates for their constituents. On a more sombre note, Mr. Speaker, can I join with the Prime Minister? I was glad to hear what he just had to say, because I'm sure the whole House will join me in sharing our disgust at the death of Alexei Navalny, who, as the Prime Minister said, died because of his efforts to expose the corruption of the Putin regime. It is a reminder that Putin has stolen not just the wealth, but also the future and democracy of the Russian people. Mr. Speaker, would the Prime Minister be prepared personally to repeat the allegation made by his business secretary that the former chair of the Post Office is lying when he says he was told to go slow on compensation for postmasters and limp to the next election?
Mr. Speaker, as the Business Secretary said on Monday, she asked Henry Staunton to step down after serious concerns were raised. She set out the reasons for this and the full background in the House earlier this week. But importantly, we have also taken unprecedented steps to ensure that victims of the Horizon scandal do receive compensation as swiftly as possible and in full. Making sure that victims receive justice and compensation remains our #1 priority, and we will shortly bring forward legislation to address this matter soon.
I'm not sure that takes us very much further forward, so let me press on, because on Monday the Business Secretary also confirmed categorically that the Post Office was, and I'll quote this in fairness to the Prime Minister, at no point told to delay compensation payments by either an official or a minister from any government department, and at no point was it suggested that a delay would be of benefit to the Treasury. So that's Monday. A note released by the former Post Office chair this morning appears to directly contradict that. And I appreciate the business. This really matters to the people who've been at the heart. I appreciate that the Business Secretary has put the Prime Minister in a tricky position. But will he commit to investigating this matter properly, including whether that categorical statement was correct and why, rather than taking those accusations seriously, she accused a whistleblower of lying?
Mr. Speaker, it is worth bearing in mind that, as the Business Secretary said on Monday, she asked Henry Staunton to step down after serious concerns were raised. But this is, on a matter of substance, one of the greatest miscarriages of justice in our nation's history, because people who were working hard serving their communities had their lives and reputations destroyed, and that's why we are working hard to ensure that they get justice and compensation, and that's why we established Sir Win Williams' inquiry. It's why we've already paid out over £150 million of compensation to almost 3,000 victims, and it's why we will introduce new legislation shortly to exonerate those. We will make sure that we do what is needed, that the truth does come to light, we right the wrongs of the past, and crucially, that victims get the justice that they deserve.
Mr. Speaker, I do hope the Prime Minister will instigate that investigation into what was said on Monday, because one of the features of this miscarriage is that where concerns have been raised, they've been pushed to one side. And this week we also learned that a 2016 investigation into whether post office branch accounts could be altered was suddenly stopped before it was completed. Now, had that investigation revealed that they could be altered, which we now know to be the case, the livelihoods of those wrongly prosecuted could have been saved. What did government ministers know about it at the time?
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has picked one particular date, but it is worth bearing in mind that this scandal has unfolded over decades, Mr. Speaker, and it was actually following a landmark 2019 High Court case that the previous government established a statutory inquiry led by Sir Win Williams, which is uncovering exactly what went wrong, Mr. Speaker, and it is right that that inquiry is allowed to do its work. But also, Mr. Speaker, following the High Court case, the government established an independent advisory board, established not one but 3 different compensation schemes, and as of now, over 2/3 of people have received full and final offers, because what we are focused on is making sure that the victims get the justice and the compensation that they deserve.
Mr. Speaker, this information about 2016 has just come to light, I think, this week, which is precisely why I'm asking about it. Considering the Prime Minister's Foreign Secretary was running the government in 2016, and one of the Prime Minister's current Cabinet Office ministers was the Post Office Minister, has he thought to ask either of them what they knew in 2016?
No, Mr. Speaker. We did the right thing.